My lawyer wrote to me, "Call me immediately." He told me the terrible truth about my mother-in-law. Have you ever had a feeling, a tiny nagging whisper in the back of your mind that something, someone, isn't what they seem? You brush it off. You tell yourself you're being paranoid, ungrateful, maybe even crazy. But what if that whisper was the truth trying to break through? What if the person who wrapped you in a blanket of kindness was secretly weaving a web to entrap you and was architecting your entire downfall? That's the story I'm telling you today. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's a story about inheritance, twisted love, and a secret so dark it redefines the word evil. It's about my mother-in-law, Diana. And by the end of this, you're going to understand why the words from my lawyer, "Call me immediately," didn't just shatter my world, they revealed a truth more horrifying than I could have ever imagined. So get comfortable. This is a long one, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single word. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. This story, it needs to be heard. My name is Lena. 5 years ago, I thought I had it all. I had married my best friend, Mark. He was kind, solid, with a laugh that could fill a room. He'd had a tough start in life. His biological father died when he was young, and his mother, Diana, had raised him alone. He adored her for her sacrifices, and that love was contagious. From the moment Mark introduced me to his mother, she was perfect. Where you hear nightmare stories of monster-in-laws, Diana was a dream. She welcomed me with open arms. She remembered my birthday, my favourite flowers, yellow tulips, my irrational fear of crickets. When Mark and I got engaged, she didn't get possessive. She cried tears of joy and insisted on planning the entire wedding, calling it her honour. She paid for it too. A lavish, beautiful day that felt like a fairy tale. "I never had a daughter," she'd whisper, squeezing my hand. "Now I do. You're the daughter I always wanted, and you've made my boy so happy." After the wedding, she was ever present, but in the best way. She'd show up with groceries just because. She'd insist on taking my car for servicing so I wouldn't have to worry. She was our biggest cheerleader, our rock. When I got pregnant with our daughter Ellie, Diana was my personal guardian angel. She attended every doctor's appointment, knitted a mountain of tiny booties, and doted on me. She even turned our spare room into a nursery, painting it herself. Mark adored his mother. So did I. We considered ourselves the luckiest people in the world. But hindsight, my friends, is a cruel, illuminating light. Looking back, the cracks were there, tiny hairline fractures in the perfect porcelain facade. I remember once, a few months after Ellie was born, I was exhausted. Diana offered to watch the baby so Mark and I could have a date night. We came home to a spotless house and a sleeping infant. Grateful, I went to thank her. She was in the kitchen and she didn't hear me come in. She was staring at a family photo on our fridge, a picture of me, Mark, and Ellie. And her expression, it wasn't warm. It was proprietary, as if she were looking at her family, and I was just a temporary fixture in the frame. She saw me, and the mask instantly snapped back into place, all warmth and smiles. I shook it off. Too much sleep deprivation, I thought. Another time, I mentioned to Mark that I was thinking of going back to work part-time. The next day, Diana was over, her face etched with concern. "Lena, darling," she said, "are you sure?" "Leaving Ellie with strangers? I know it's old-fashioned, but a mother's place is with her child. I'd help, of course, but I just worry it's so unstable for her." She made me feel guilty, selfish. I dropped the idea. She was slowly, gently isolating me, but she framed it as love. She was so good, she had me believing her concerns were my concerns. The big crack appeared 2 years ago. Mark was killed, a hit-and-run driver on his way home from work. The world stopped, the colour drained from everything. The only thing that kept me breathing was Ellie, and the only thing holding me together was Diana. She moved in temporarily. She handled the funeral arrangements, the mountains of paperwork, the well-meaning but suffocating visitors. She was my shield. In my grief, I leaned on her completely. I was a ghost, and she was the puppet master keeping me upright. As the fog of grief began, very slowly, to lift, I started to think about the future. Mark's father had left him a significant inheritance, held in a trust that Mark would fully control at 35. He was 33 when he died. I knew it was there, a safety net for our future. I mentioned it to Diana. "We need to talk to the estate lawyer," I said, my voice still hollow. She patted my hand. "Already on it, my dear. I've been dealing with Mr. Williams. It's all in hand. You just focus on healing." I was so grateful. One less thing to bear. Weeks turned into months. The trust was never mentioned. Whenever I asked, Diana had a reason. "The trust is locked until the probate is completely settled. Mr. Williams says it's a complex process with tax implications. There's a backlog." Meanwhile, my finances were bleeding dry. My savings were evaporating. Diana, of course, was there. "Don't you worry about a thing," she'd say, writing a cheque for the mortgage. "I'll cover it. It's what Mark would have wanted. We're family." Her help came with strings, though. Strings that began to feel like chains. She started making comments. "This house is too big for you and Ellie, isn't it? So many memories. It must be so painful." She'd talk about a lovely condo she'd seen, much more manageable. She began questioning my parenting. "She's a bit clingy, isn't she? Maybe you're coddling her. Or, are you sure that's enough vegetables? I can take over mealtimes if it's too much." I started to feel judged, inadequate, and trapped. But whenever I felt a spark of defiance, I'd squash it. "She's helping you, Lena. She's all you have. Don't be ungrateful." The final straw was when I found Ellie's passport in Diana's purse. I was looking for a lip balm she'd borrowed. "Diana?" I asked, holding it up, my heart starting to beat a little faster. "Why do you have this?" She didn't even blink. "Oh, I was just updating my records. You know, for my will. Making sure all my details are correct for little Ellie." She smiled, took it from my hand, and tucked it back into her purse. "Best I keep hold of important documents." "You've been so scattered lately, darling. I'd hate for it to get lost." That was the moment the whisper became a scream. Something was very, very wrong. The next day, I told Diana I was taking Ellie to the new dinosaur exhibit at the Natural History Museum. It was a Saturday. It was packed with families. The noise was incredible. While Ellie was mesmerised by a T-Rex, I found a quietish corner, Googled the top-rated litigation firms in the city, and called the number for a woman named Sarah Jeong, known for being a pit bull in inheritance disputes. I quickly whispered my story into the phone, my back turned to the crowd, feeling like a spy. The receptionist was professional, unfazed. "We'll need documentation. Can you post it?" "No," I whispered urgently. "She checks my mail, everything." There was a pause. "Do you have a trusted friend? We can use their address as a point of contact." I thought of my oldest friend, Chloe, who lived across the country. Diana had never liked her and had subtly encouraged me to drift apart from her. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "Yes," I said, "I have someone." "Okay," the receptionist said. "We'll send a letter to that address. It will look like a standard marketing mailer. Inside, it will instruct you to call us immediately from a secure line. Do not call from your home phone." I gave her Chloe's address. I hung up. My hands were slick with sweat. I felt a terrifying mix of sheer terror and the first glimmer of hope I'd felt in 2 years. Then the waiting began. The most agonizing 2 weeks of my life, playing nice with Diana, smiling at her lies, letting her hold my daughter, all while knowing what she was. It was a special kind of hell. Can you imagine that? The sheer psychological torture of having to smile at the person who is systematically destroying your life. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to pretend with someone who betrayed you. What was that like? The envelope finally arrived at Chloe's. She called me, read the return address, a bland corporate name, and read the enclosed note aloud over the phone. Potential trust fund inquiry. Please call Miss Jeong at your earliest convenience from a private line. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I waited until Diana left for her book club with Ellie. I drove to a remote parking lot, my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. I called the number. Sarah Jeong's voice was calm, steady, and all business. Lena, thank you for calling. I've done some preliminary digging based on what you told me. You need to come to my office. Today, if possible. Why? What did you find? I begged. It's complex, and it's not just about the trust. There's more. Just come in. I drove downtown in a daze, my mind racing. What could be worse than stealing my inheritance? Sarah's office was all cool glass and sleek wood. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an expression that promised no nonsense. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. She gestured for me to sit and opened a file. First, the trust left by Mark's father. The terms were clear. If Mark died before the age of 35, the entire estate principal and all accrued interest was to pass to his next of kin. That's you. And Ellie. A wave of relief washed over me, followed immediately by confusion. So, where is it? It was transferred, Sarah said, her voice grim. 3 days after the probate court finalised Mark's death certificate, the entire contents of the trust were liquidated and wired to a private account, an account in the name of Diana Croft. The confirmation was a physical blow. She stole it, I whispered, tears of anger and betrayal welling up. Yes, but that's not why I asked you to come in. Sarah's face grew even more serious. When you mentioned the power of attorney, it raised a red flag. I pulled the records. Lena, she didn't just use it to manage your bills. 3 months ago, she used it to refinance your house. I stared at her, uncomprehending. Refinance? But it was almost paid off. The trust was meant to... She took out a new, larger mortgage against the property. She drained the equity. The room tilted. How much? She took out $400,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. She hadn't just stolen the trust, she'd mortgaged my future, my daughter's inheritance, to the hilt. I was now drowning in debt I never knew existed. We can fight this, Sarah said firmly. The POA was granted under duress. We can sue for the return of the trust funds and to have the mortgage declared fraudulent. It will be a fight, but we have a case. I was numb, reeling from the financial devastation. But Sarah wasn't finished. She took a deep breath, her professional demeanour cracking for just a moment. Lena, there's something else. When I was reviewing Mark's father's will, I noticed something. Diana wasn't his biological mother. I looked up, confused. What? Yes, she island. She raised him alone. She was his stepmother. Mark's biological mother died in childbirth. His father married Diana when Mark was 2 years old. She adopted him. She is his legal mother, which is why she had access and could play the part so convincingly. But this changes the motive significantly. A cold dread began to creep up my spine. How? The trust was from Mark's biological father. His entire estate was reserved for his bloodline, for Mark and then for his children. Diana, as the stepmother, was explicitly excluded from inheriting anything from that trust. She would have received nothing. The pieces were starting to click into place, forming a picture of monstrous greed, Sarah continued, her voice dropping lower. And when I was digging into these timelines, I pulled the police report for the night of your husband's hit and run. Why? I asked, my voice a thin whisper. The report noted a witness, an elderly man walking his dog. He gave a statement. He said he saw a car. It was waiting, he said, parked just around the bend from where your husband was struck. He thought it was odd. The driver didn't have their hazards on. After the accident, the car didn't move for a full minute. Then it drove away, slowly, in the opposite direction. My blood ran cold. Did they find the car? Number. The case went cold, but I cross-referenced the date. Lena, the night your husband died. She paused, choosing her words with immense care. Diana's car was in the shop for bodywork. The repair invoice is dated the next morning for damage consistent with a side impact collision. The world didn't just tilt, it shattered. Time stopped. The air grew thick and impossible to breathe. She wasn't his real mother. She was excluded from the will, parked around the bend, drove away slowly. Bodywork the next morning. It wasn't an accident. It was a calculation, a murder for an inheritance she was never meant to have. She killed her stepson to steal his birthright. The sound that came out of me wasn't a sob. It was a raw, guttural scream of pure, unadulterated agony, torn from the deepest, most broken part of my soul. Sarah rushed around her desk, but I was already on the floor, the world dissolving into a vortex of unimaginable horror. I want you to pause for a second. Just pause. Think about the depth of that betrayal. She wasn't just a greedy mother-in-law, she was a stepmother who murdered her son for a fortune that was never hers. Drop a comment right now with just one word. How does that make you feel? Horrified? Angry? Shocked? Let me see your reactions. I don't know how long I sat on that floor. Eventually, the shock hardened into something else. A cold, diamond-hard resolve. Grief was a luxury I could not afford. Rage was a fire I would use to forge my weapon. Diana didn't just take my husband. She killed him for money she felt entitled to. She threatened my daughter. She thought she could play the grieving grandmother while living off her stepson's blood money. She thought I was a broken puppet. She was about to learn how wrong she was. With Sarah's help, we devised a plan. We couldn't go to the police yet. The car repair invoice was circumstantial. We needed more. We needed a confession. I had to go back. I had to live in that house with her, knowing what I knew. I had to be the perfect, grieving, gullible daughter-in-law. It was the greatest acting performance of my life. I drove home, practicing my lines, steeling my nerves. I walked through the door, my eyes red-rimmed from crying at the park again. Diana fussed over me. You poor thing, still so fragile. I wanted to vomit. I let her hug me. I let her make me soup. The next day, I put phase 1 into action. I started to snap out of it. I became more assertive. I told her I was grateful for her help, but I needed to start standing on my own 2 feet. For Ellie, I said, laying the groundwork. I saw the flicker of annoyance in her eyes, quickly masked by concern. Of course, darling, but don't push yourself too hard. A week later, I played my card. I told her I'd been thinking and had decided to sell the house after all. You were right, I said, smiling sweetly. Too many memories. I need a fresh start. I've already contacted a realtor. Panic. I saw genuine, raw panic in her eyes. She couldn't let me sell the house. The fraudulent mortgage would be discovered during the sale process. Oh, no, Lena, that's far too hasty, she said, her voice strained. The market is terrible right now. Let's just wait. I've made up my mind, I said, my voice firm. It's time. The trap was set. She was cornered. She had to stop me. The following night, she came into the living room with 2 glasses of wine. She looked pensive. Lena, we need to talk. About the house. There's something I need to tell you. I muted the television, giving her my full attention. My phone, on the coffee table, was secretly recording audio. Sarah was on the other end of a live call, listening and recording everything. Diana took a dramatic breath. After Mark died, the bills were piling up. The trust was tied up. I was so worried about you and Ellie. I did something I thought was for the best. I took out a small loan against the house to keep us afloat. I feigned shock. You what? Diana, how could you? How much? She waved a dismissive hand. It's nothing we can't handle, just a little debt. But you see, if you sell the house now, the bank will take their share. We'll be left with nothing. We need to stay, just for a few years, to pay it down. I let the silence hang. I looked at her, my expression a mask of hurt and betrayal. You had no right. Her mask finally slipped. The caring grandmother vanished, replaced by something cold and entitled. No right? I had every right. I've been keeping this family together. I've sacrificed everything for you. For him. For him? I pushed, my heart hammering. For Mark, your stepson. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Her face went pale. She hadn't expected me to know. What did you just say? She whispered. I know everything, Diana. I know you were his stepmother. I know his father's money was never meant for you. Her eyes glittered with a strange, manic light. That money was mine, she shrieked, all pretense gone. I raised him. I changed his diapers. I nursed him through fevers. I dedicated my life to him. And that man, his father, he left everything to the boy and cut me out entirely. It was an insult. I earned that money. I pushed further, my voice icy cold. So you took it. You killed him for it. She was breathing heavily, her chest heaving. The words, the terrible truth, were right there. He was going to leave you, you know, she spat. A final, desperate lie. He told me he was miserable. Stop lying, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You were waiting around that bend. You saw his headlights, and you pressed the accelerator. The rage on her face was terrifying. He was mine, she screamed, the confession tearing out of her. I made him. I owned him. If I couldn't have him, if that money wasn't going to be mine for all my years of service, then no one would, especially not you. You who waltzed in and took him from me. You who would have gotten everything that was rightfully mine. The silence that followed was deafening. The confession hung in the air between us, ugly and final. She stared at me, and in that moment, she saw it. She saw the recording app on my phone screen. She saw the cold, calculated victory in my face. The rage on her face melted into first confusion, then dawning horror, and finally, abject terror. She knew she had lost. The front door burst open. 2 police officers, followed by Sarah Jong, entered the living room. They had heard everything. Diana Croft was read her rights right there on my living room rug. She was charged with fraud, forgery, and the murder of her stepson, Mark Croft. As they led her away, she looked back at me, not with remorse, but with a look of pure, undiluted hatred. You, she hissed, you ruined everything. I didn't say a word. I just held my daughter tighter. The nightmare was over. The legal battles are over. Diana is serving a life sentence with no possibility of parole. The trust money and the house have been returned to me and Ellie. The mortgage has been voided, but some things can never be returned. My husband is still gone. The trust I had in the world is forever fractured. My daughter will grow up knowing the woman she called Grandma killed her father for money. The moral of this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the poison of entitlement and the horrific lengths it can drive people to. It's a lesson in knowing the full history of the family you marry into. It's about protecting your assets and your children from those who feel they are owed what is yours. Most of all, it's about resilience. I was broken, I was manipulated, I was gaslit to the edge of my sanity, but I found a core of strength I never knew I had. For my daughter, for my husband's memory, and for myself. I survived, and I rebuilt. This story is a chilling reminder to protect your peace, to know your legal rights, and to never, ever ignore your intuition. Evil often wears the kindest mask. If this story shocked you, if it resonated with you, if it made you feel something powerful, please do me a huge favor. Smash that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest and most compelling stories of betrayal and revenge. And now, I want to hear from you. What's the one lesson you're taking away from Lena's story? Is it know your family's history? Is it get everything in writing? Let's have a powerful discussion down in the comments. Your stories and insights are what make this community so strong. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, stay strong. I'll see you in the next video.